Today, I'm excited and honored to interview Frank McPherson. He is relatively new here at Epworth, but a very well-known man in Oklahoma City. I'm going to let him tell you his story because it's fascinating. And here's Frank. Hey, Frank, let's start at the beginning. Tell us where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in eastern Oklahoma on a farm near Stillwell, which is in the area of Lake Tenkiller.
Okay. And your dad was a sharecropper, I think you told me. You grew up really doing the hard farm work, right?
He was a sharecropper until I was 11, and he was able to get our home place, farm, that as it turned out, worked out really well.
And you learned to milk cows, I know.
Well, we were poor, and we started milking cows when I was a little. I didn't start milking a cow until I was about 11. About the time we moved to this new place, new home place, we sold milk to Pet Milk Company, which was a condensed milk company, and therefore we didn't have a grade A. My father was determined not to be in the dairy business any longer than he had to build a beef herd. And that's really what he did over the next many years. And I did a little of everything on the farm. Plowing corn, baling hay, hauling hay, picking strawberries.
Yes.
Pulling weeds out of strawberry patches, which is not pleasant in July and August. But I had a great growing up time with, I have one sister. We worked as a unit, my father, my mother, my sister and I. Of course, in those days, you canned all summer long for winter, and so you really ate what you grew.
That's right.
And we did not have refrigeration, didn't have electricity or running water until we moved, and I was 11 when we got running water.
Things changed when you turned 11. You told me your mother had a good sense of humor and your dad really was encouraging education. Tell us about that education as you went.
His father died when he was 11. He had an older brother, 13, and there were 3 siblings. So there was no money, and so they did a little bit of everything. He grew up, he and his brother, what they called chopped ties or made railroad cross ties with a broadaxe, and so he had a hard life, and he was determined. My mother and he were determined that we were going to get an education, but due to the financial situation, early on he was telling us we had to figure out how to go to school. Some way, somehow, go to school.
And how did you do that?
Well, I went after my junior year in high school, between junior and senior year. I went away to work to Houston to an uncle that got me a job with his company, and I worked on a derrick barge that first summer. And this company built their own tugboats and barges and river boats. So the next summer I worked in the shipyard. The little man on totem pole, he did the dirty jobs. And then the next summer I went down to work in the shipyard again. And this new riverboat was sitting at the dock taking on groceries, and I knew what that meant. They meant they were getting ready to go out. And so at lunchtime, that first day at work, I went over and talked to the captain, and he hired me as a deckhand. So I spent the summer on the Mississippi River pushing aviation gasoline barges to St. Louis, and then we would lock into the Missouri and take the gasoline up to Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
And so it was an interesting summer.
So you did that kind of summer work when you were at OSU?
Well, yes, I had.
You started high school.
I finished high school and started at OSU.
Okay.
And I found out and I had headed toward engineering as a major. And when I was the third summer, I found out that the oil companies were hiring summer engineers and put them in a training program. And so I got a job as a roughneck on a drilling rig down in the it was the inland waters, but it was like offshore because we stayed out there 6 days out and 6 days in, 12-hour shifts. So
on the oil rigs out in the water?
yes,
Okay.
there's a reason they pay you well.
Yeah.
It has its hazards, especially in the 60s, the 50s rather, when I was roughnecking. I threw the chain, which was used to spin up the drill pipe when you were making the trip to change the bit.
Well, that's pretty hard work, and you did that during the summers, did you?
In South Louisiana, it's really hot.
Yeah.
Humidity's
Oh.
high, so your boots be full of sweat by the time it was 10, 11 o'clock if you were working days. It was hot.
Yeah.
And mosquitoes.
What was your degree from OSU?
Mechanical engineering, and then I doubled back and picked up petroleum courses and geology and physical chemistry and courses like that in the oil industry.
And straight out of college, did you get a job with Kerr?
I went to work for Kerr McGee, which is it's a natural resource company. It had oil and gas, drilling and exploration, and it also had chemicals and refining, and it had uranium. They were known for their uranium production in the 50s and 60s. But it was a
good job.
It was yes. They would hold your job while you were in the military.
Oh, and you went into the military.
I went in. I went in the ROTC program. So I had a commission as second lieutenant when I graduated, and I had taken all the tests and physicals for flight training, and I had been accepted into flight training. But they changed the program when I got on active duty. They changed it to the point that you had to sign indefinite at the time you went in, whereas what I signed up to do was 3 years active, 7 years inactive, reserve. And so the way it worked, once you got your wings, which is about a year or a little more, then you had to decide if you want to advance flight training, and then you signed indefinite. And I had a job, I had a wife, and I had a baby. And I had never planned to make a career out of it. I really wanted to fly airplanes. And so I declined.
You mentioned your family. I know that you married your high school sweetheart.
Yes, that was kind of a long distance romance. She went to Oklahoma Baptist University and I went to Oklahoma State University. And I went away every summer to work. So we were married in our last year. So she transferred to OSU and finished at OSU.
Okay. And then you have four children?
Three sons and a daughter. They're all really pretty close together. And we had a great time with our kids. They were boys as boys are, and our daughter Rebecca was a girl as girls are. I mean,
yeah. Difference. There's a difference for sure when they're growing up.
We really enjoyed our kids. We did things with them.
Well, when you got out of the Air Force, you went back with Kerr McGee?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Went back to Kerr McGee in 1960. I was in the military from 57 to 60. So I went back to Kerr McGee as a trainee engineer in the corporate office in Oklahoma City for 1 year. And then I went to South Louisiana to Morgan City, which is about halfway between Lafayette and New Orleans. It was a pretty place. It was not a swamp, as you think swamp. It was a cypress swamp.
And you did that, and then when did you go into the corporate office?
Oh, well, I spent 13 and a half years in Morgan City at several different jobs. I started as an engineer, and then I was a district engineer, and then I was the manager of drilling, all the drilling rigs. When they had trouble, that's who they called. But I'd already spent about 4 years on drilling rigs as the company man, or the one that was in charge. And then I was actually had the drilling rigs reporting to me, and so when they had trouble at night, or whenever they had trouble, I was the one that took the call. And if the person on there couldn't handle a problem, then my job was to go out there and
sounds very involved. Very involved.
Well, in the Gulf of Mexico, early on, the industry didn't know how to drill wells. They knew how to drill wells really well on land, but not in the ocean.
Did you have a lot to do with the difference in how you were doing in the water and versus land drilling? Did you have?
We learned.
You learned it the hard way.
We learned
right?
it the hard way, and the company, Kerr McGee, that I worked for, made the first discovery of a producing well outside of land.
Well, you sound like a very, very, very knowledgeable. I'm not real sure I could do that, but I know. But your mechanical and petroleum engineer degree certainly has helped you along the line, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
It has. And how did you get into the corporate office?
The executive VP of Kerr McGee was George Park, and he chit-chatted a while and said, "You need to go see McGee." And I said, why do I need to see the chairman, the CEO, which was Dean McGee? He said, just you need to go see him. So I go see him, and he chit-chats for a minute, and he said, "Frank, I'm going to ask you to do I'm trying to get the mining guys to design a machine that will recover ore deeper than you can strip mine," which sounded pretty like impossible, because that was the way it was done today. You strip as deep as you can, and then you go underground. So I really was looking for a way to leave Morgan City. When he asked me that, I said, I thought about it for a short time, and I said, "I'll do it." And he said, "No, Frank, just go home and think about it. If that takes you out of your career path, so just think about it." I said, "No, I'll do it." Long story short,
You did.
we designed a device, a piece of actually.
This is your invention, right?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about your invention.
Basically, I had a design, a tube, a 1-inch wall thick tube, 30 feet tall, 30 feet long, with side cut out of it. And inside that tube, the cutter, which it was 11 feet long, and it had modified it to where we could pump fluid through it so it could sweep the cutting side back. We recovered about 75 tons of coal. I asked them for a site that had ore, in this case, I asked for coal, below 200 feet, and so I had this location up in Wyoming. That's where I took this thing, and I used a drilling rig to handle it. But all I was trying to do was prove the device, and you would build a special deal to basically handle it. I mean, it'd be really simple. It'd be track mounted and be simple. Mr. B told me that they were going to start a new subsidiary, the Kirby Coal Corporation, and I would be named president. So that was.
And then you continued with the company, and you actually were the CEO, right?
Yes.
Of Kerr-McGee Corporation.
I was the CEO for 14 years.
I'm very proud of that.
Had a good life.
Good.
Interesting life.
You've done a lot, and considering where you began and where you have ended, well, at Epworth, and you have a beautiful apartment now, I think.
I enjoy it.
Beautiful apartment, and I'm so glad you're here. Geez, you've had a fantastic life.
And I have, faith has been an important part of my life from a very early age. And whatever I've done in life, any of the accomplishments are really, is a God thing. God and a good wife and very hard-working employees. You know, without God, without my wife, without the kind of employees that I had, I wouldn't have amounted to much. It was really a God thing.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. I really feel honored. Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you.